Hello everyone, and welcome to the Whovians. Today we are discussing the Zygon Invasion, and we're going to start with Beef Death.
Wonderfully complicated, extremely complex. It's got more twists and turns in it than an entire drawer full of corkscrews. I particularly enjoyed what they've done with Clara in this. You don't know for sure whether or not Clara is dead. You have a Zygon replica who has turned out to be a complete and utter bitch. And she's playing it brilliantly. I will say that for her. She is playing it brilliantly. We've had the return of Osgood. I was absolutely convinced straight away that it was the real Osgood, because when she was under the desk, she was using a puffer. The kidnapping of people all over London is just absolute brilliance. And the Zygons are gradually replacing the people and kidnapping everyone else. And it's just brilliantly conceived. I would say a bit messily scripted, but I am really enjoying it and looking forward very much to next week. At the moment, it gets an 8.5 out of 10 for me.
An 8.5 out of 10 from Beef Death. And now we are going to Mr. Jimmy Porto, Editor-in-Chief.
You watch it. After you watch it, you realize you're going to have to watch it again. And when you watch it again, at times it drags. I like that Ingrid Oliver is back as Osgood simply because I like Ingrid Oliver. Jenna Coleman plays two characters in this. And that I like that she's playing two characters. I actually like Jenna Coleman in this because she's playing two characters. But there are things I didn't like about the episode. Partly that it dragged. Some things didn't make sense to me, like why would the head of unit go to New Mexico all by herself without any backup? Why say that Harry, the doctor's companion, Tom Baker's doctor, why make him the mad scientist who invented the formula for genocide of the Zygons? Especially when Ian Martell, the actor that played him, is not here to defend the character. Just like they did with Nicholas Courtney, making him a Cyberman. And Nicholas Courtney is not here to defend the character. I didn't like that they did that. It's part one of part two, so it's hard to rate part one on itself without seeing part two. It dragged a bit, but you have to see, after you watch the episode, you have to see it twice. Without seeing part two and just rating it part one on its own, I would have to give it a 6.
All right. A 6 out of 10 from Jimmy Porto. And now we are going all the way to Texas to Tim Wells.
I sort of agree with Jimmy's point about it maybe dragging a little bit, but I think that was necessary for the scope and the scale of the episode. You've got 3 groups going off to investigate this situation, and Beef had made a good point about that yesterday, that it takes a while for the whole plot to come together. It only does so towards the last 10 minutes, I think. Plus, I think there's a lot we didn't see. Like you said, it's hard to judge this based on the one half of it because we're going to see something different next week. I liked the way that Osgood neither confirmed nor denied which one she was. I think, again, there's something we don't know about her. And it was implied that she, after the death of her counterpart, whichever one it was, last series, that she went a little bit crazy and ran off to New Mexico. And we still have to see how that's going to add into the story. I mean, I think also, like at the end, we don't really see what happens with Kate. She has a scene, they come back to it, and it looks like she's been replaced by a Zygon, but we don't know what she knows. She might be playing a game as well. I'm not so sure I would say that the Doctor is a Zygon. I would think that, again, it's really hard to judge this story on its own because it's a half of a story. But I'm watching it the third time this morning. I really liked it a lot more. I think on the first watch, it does seem to drag a little bit. And you almost like are saying, would you get to the point already? But the point is, they're dragging for a reason. You need to, they're giving you clues along the way. Like, I think somebody mentioned in the chat earlier that it was obvious Clara was a Zygon. It wasn't obvious she was a Zygon until the scene where she, says, hey, I'm a Zygon, So, I mean, it's only on second viewing. Like Jimmy said, you do have to go back and watch it again. But last night I gave it an 8. I think after seeing it a third time, I'm gonna up it to a 9. I think it's a good first half of a story. And I'm really intrigued to see how they're going to tie it all together next week.
Yeah. All right, a 9 from Texas Tim. And now we are going to the lovely Lady Neo.
Basically, I have to agree with both Jimmy and Tim. Well, they did kind of butcher some of the, while they did have, classic Who references, and they did kind of butcher some of it, in a sense. I did like the part with the underpants, with the question mark underpants. That was adorable. Another thing was the seriousness. I loved how serious it was. It was very serious. Osgood was serious. Everybody around the Doctor was serious. I mean, you did have your little your comedic bits with the Doctor and everything, but it was such a serious and dark episode. So, while, like Tim would say, you can't really rate this. Jimmy said it too. You can't really rate this. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10 until we see the next part.
All right, an 8 out of 10 from Lady Neo. And now we are going to Lee Wilson's house.
This season, I've been getting the feeling that the writers have been righting the wrongs of seasons past, of mistakes they've made. And this episode last night has proved my thing on that. It's because the Zygons, the back, they're evil, they're fierce. That's what they should have been in the day of the Doctor. I think they are righting the wrongs of what they've done in the past. But I'm good on them. But yeah, I like this story. It's as you say, you've got to watch it. You've got to think. It makes you think, and I think that's good writing. That if you start thinking about what's going on, that's good writing. Yeah, don't know, the Clara Zygon thing, that totally came out of the blue with me, and I loved that. That was brilliant. Well acted there. Capaldi, yeah, he wasn't in it much, but I think this episode is all set up. It's all set up for the next part, and hopefully the next part's going to top this one, and I'll be okay with that. The scene with the unit soldiers and the people outside the a church, that was brilliant. I mean, there was no Zygon effects there. It was just people, but they talked him into the building. That was just so well acted. I just loved that bit. And of course, they all got destroyed. But yeah, to rate this one without seeing next part, as everybody else says, it's going to be a bit difficult. Yeah. Also, as well, you got a little glimpse of the first Doctor there, a portrait of him in Osgood's office. That was a little nod to the past. So that as well, that had a 0.5 on my score, so I'm going to give it 8.5. Hartnell just upped it a bit.
An 8.5 from Lee Wilson. So now it comes all down to me. No, well, what I think about it was the story was pretty good. At some times it was a little bit dragging, but we can understand it's a setup episode, like Lee Wilson was saying. Osgood was very good in it. They explained, how the Day of the Doctor and the Zygons from now are, different, and and now the Zygons are totally evil right now. And you can see that when Clara was revealed that it was the Zygon Clara, it was totally out of the blue for me. I was like, what? Really, I was screaming, not screaming at my TV, but I was saying what really, and my mother could hear it, and it wasn't fine. But the doctor, yes, he played the guitar again, the Amazing Grace, of course, a little bit. Yeah, they shouldn't do too much of it, you know, not too long, only 5 seconds, you know, that he's playing in the when Clara's gone. But the doctor wasn't in it that much, but I didn't miss him. He was, you know, he was what it was. Like I'm going to expect that he's going to be in the next episode to get more screen time. Jenna Coleman playing 2 characters, brilliant. I didn't expect that she could do that. Well acting right there. Kate Manning, well, I liked her in Day of the Doctor, but in the series 9 she's a complete, really an idiot. She's just like the first episode of series 9. That you know, the planes has fuel, and then Clara has to tell her that the plane got fuel. Really? Well, that explains all that. So I hope that she gets well within next week, because she's going all on her own to Mexico, and the police woman, of course, I expect her that she was a Zygon, because how she behaved and all that stuff. But that scene with all or only people like come in, you know, it's me, I'm your mother. I was believing that was the mother, and then the soldier said, shoot her, yeah, and then the son has to shoot her own mother, and he couldn't do it. I can understand that, and it was well acted. So I'm going to give this, if this was we have seen the first part, but for now I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Now we leave the floor open, so say what you want.
I'm not sure if this episode is political commentary or not. I know the United Kingdom is having an influx of Syrian immigrants. The United States, we get immigrants. The Zygons say that they want to be free to be themselves and to be Zygons. In this country, the United States, we have immigrants who want to maintain their culture, but they don't even want to speak English. And I don't know if the episode is in fact political commentary on that or not. It may not be at all. I just may be misreading it, or it may be.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't think the Zygons are necessarily portrayed as evil. They made it clear that this is a faction of Zygons that are doing this.
Right.
They're trying to take over. In other words, the peace treaty was working up to a certain point until this faction decided, no, we don't want to be that. We'd rather just take over the world like our buddies did back in the 70s, or tried to do back in the 70s. I would also comment, too, Lee, I know you're no fan of Day of the Doctor, but, I mean, the Zygons in that were the B plot. They were not the A plot. That's why they came in and were dropped out halfway through. That was all about the 3 doctors. So, I mean, they were bad guys, but they were settled with the unit thing. So, I mean, that was where we get this story from, basically. They're following up. It's a couple of years later. The treaty was working, but now there's this faction, which is, like you just pointed out, Jimmy, is very relevant to what happens in the world today. You have one group of people that misrepresent their religion and do terrible things and kill a lot of people.
The only reason I wasn't sure is I didn't know when the episode was actually written. Just because we saw it today doesn't mean it was written last month. It could have been written 2 years ago, for all I know.
I think it was. I think most of these were written a couple of years ago.
Well, I don't think they would have been written a couple of years ago. They wouldn't have written them until, because these have been written for Capaldi, and this is only his second season.
Another thing that was mentioned in this episode, and apparently is going to be mentioned every episode in Series 9, is hybrid. Hybrid is brought up again.
Yes.
Every episode they're bringing up hybrid, so that has something to do with the finale. Another thing that didn't make sense to me was Osgood goes to the tombstone, and the tombstone says, "My sister." It's a big, huge tombstone. You can't miss it. There's nothing else on the tombstone. Wouldn't people wonder Well, whose name should be on there? Why would you make a tombstone like that? It just draws attention.
One of the magic things for me was they began the whole thing in Brockwell Park, South East London.
Yeah, the playground, right?
Yes, that's right, Brockwell Park. And I grew up playing in Brockwell Park. It was one of the nearest parks to me from when I was a child. And I grew up playing there, so it was a real blast from the past for me. And it's a bit unusual for them to use a South London location.
So this is their way of telling the world that you are a Zygon leader?
Anything is possible, especially in the Who universe.
Yes.
Beef Dad neither confirms nor denies that he is a Zygon leader.
Try. We all know how that happened. Well, the scary thing about
one hell of a sneeze.
Yeah. Oh, a sneeze. Wow. That can happen. Well, the scary thing about the episode is when you don't know who's which. Is it a Zygon or is it a human? That's the very scary thing about it.
And that's a good thing about it, because it makes you watch it trying to figure out who is who, and that is good.
Well, that's a question I have also. Why try to have a secret treaty with these creatures? I mean, why not let them be themselves? They're basically reptile men, and you can't expect the public to get used to the idea if you're going to allow them to disguise themselves as humans. I would think that the treaty would have worked in a way that you just allowed the Zygons to be Zygons, and instead of trying to fool the public and let this faction take over England, pretty much, because they were able to. They've been doing this plot for a year or two now and replacing humans, and now they're ready to take over the world again. I mean, I think that was a mistake of the treaty, wasn't it, that they were allowed to be disguised as humans all the time?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and they don't know if they were Zygon or human yet.
Unit is much like the unit of the 70s. Let's bomb everyone and ask questions later, whether it's Kate Stewart or the soldiers working under her. Oh, by the way, that one soldier who was telling, kill the mother, she worked with Capaldi before in a TV series that he was.
Karen Mann played Hinchley's mum.
No, the soldier, the female soldier,
Oh, the female soldier, yes.
the one in chat.
She was in the thick of it, right?
Yes, indeed.
And that was one hell of a cliffhanger, wasn't it? I mean, it was like a triple cliffhanger like they used to do back in the day with the doctor. Then you had also didn't know Kate's situation, and you had, with Clara being evil and blowing the doctor up. That was a great thing.
Yeah, it was a three-pronged cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really that when we first saw the trailer of Series 9, we all thought that, that Jenna Coleman was badass with that missile, and then, she was a Zygon. I was like, oh my god. It's, well, thank you for watching, and give a subscribe and like this video, and give a reaction what you thought of this episode. Guys, keep on moving.
Leave comments.
Alright, leave comments. Keep on moving.